welcome to episode 24 of Thrashcast. I'm your host, Billy, and I'm here with my two co-hosts, Jim and Ken. How are you guys doing today?
Well, we're
Awesome.
doing pretty good.
All right, great. We got another good episode, but before we get there, just a quick reminder: where can folks find Thrashcast? Well, at www.horrormetalsounds.com, and of course on YouTube. You don't want to miss our faces, so you'll want to see that on video. And there you can find us at Horror Metal Sounds at Kenji.2864. And then just lastly, a quick request, if I could just ask folks to like our podcast and of course subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's much appreciated. It's easy for you to do and it helps the channel grow. So that's really it in terms of quick general items. So now on to the agenda. So we're going to tackle the last band of the German Big Four that we left off. And so that's Tankard. And our album today is a classic, in my opinion, Chemical Invasion, which was released in 1987. We have some interesting Tankard related questions. And then lastly, on our usual top 10, we're doing our top 10 German, mostly thrash bands that are not named Sodom, Creator, Tankard, or Destruction. So we're taking a different spin on that. So that should be pretty fun. But before we jump into that, our usual what's spinning and any news items. Ken, do you anything on your end you want to start with?
Yeah, so here's a little bit of news recently. Craig Licicero from Forbidden just did a recent interview with Bloodstock TV. And during the interview, he was talking about, the current situation with the band. They don't have a label currently. So he kind of said that they're not looking for a label right now, that they just want to record music. And it kind of sounds like he's a little shy about finding a label. From my impression, he wants to basically, I guess, have a created album or music done and then shop it afterwards. So I'm not sure if he's gun shy or what's the case there, but I thought it was interesting how he sort of put a little bit of shade on the labels. And so I thought, okay, that's interesting. I don't think their house is in order though. With Steve Smith going back to his own band, One Machine, and then they were forced to bring in Dan Monograin in to kind of help out until they can find another guitarist. So I just thought it was kind of interesting. So I'm looking forward to new music with the new singer. But yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting news. So hopefully they do find a label eventually, because that would be
Yeah.
kind of important.
Oh,
Like they
yeah.
And a
could release
guitar
it
player.
independently. What's that?
And a guitar player. There's no way Chewy's going to leave Voivod.
No.
Chewy
No.
does the majority of the writing for Voivod. He's going to miss
Yeah.
all that in
Yeah.
Forbidden.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's just they will eventually find somebody.
Yeah.
Good luck to them. I'm hoping for new music, but I don't know. There seems to be a little bit of doubt there. So I guess we'll have to see what happens over the next, year or so. And so for my spinning this week, it's funny because I didn't buy this when it came out. Necromonicon, the German thrash band, released an album in 2023. And basically, I don't know. I maybe I missed this. I just didn't pay attention to it. So I started listening to it, constant to death. It's actually really, really good. I still got to buy a copy of it, but I was just like listening to it on Spotify. So I thought, well, this is pretty decent for a classic band. 12 albums, 12 studio albums in. So I thought that was kind of neat. So I started giving that a spin. I'll have to go out and grab the CD hopefully shortly. But yeah, that's what I've been listening to this week. But that's probably all I have really.
All right, cool. That's a good amount. Jim, over to you.
Yeah, just start with a news item. There's some sad news out of the Great White Camp.
Oh.
And not thrash related, but still, heavy metal related. The loss of singer Jack Russell. Unfortunately, really, really sad. I mean, everybody knows a lot of their albums, a lot of their music, and they were a staple, especially in the late '80s, early '80s, mid '80s to mid '90s, but kept putting out tons and tons of stuff. And I know he just released an album, I think, in the spring with Tracy Guns. So it was Russell and Guns. Pretty much right up until when he wasn't able to perform a few months ago. I mean, he was still definitely making music in that. So pretty sad thing there for sure. So, our prayers at the Thrashcast go to his friends and family. And, I know they're doing I think some of the members and past members in that, some of the other bands are looking at doing a benefit concert, so in his honor. So that's pretty cool.
So Jim, before you, just for a sec, so he had
sure.
that Lewy body disease, the
Yes.
same disease that afflicted Robin Williams.
Right.
So it's one of those rare kind of dementia-related diseases. So it's kind of sad that it took his life.
Yeah, and I think he was in palliative care, but I think kept it pretty private. So I think it might have been in April, or maybe he stepped back from Jack Russell's Great White, where I think they were doing shows at some casino shows and that, and then wasn't able to do them. So I guess at that point, maybe there was a big bit of a warning that maybe something definitely wasn't going on, but I don't think it was fully common knowledge. But anyways, definitely a sad day for that camp for sure. So we lose a great voice. It just seems to happen more and more. I mean, obviously as we all get older, but all our icons are getting older too, even though sometimes we don't realize it. We sit there and we're just like, new album. So definitely what I'm spinning, I got a couple of new things that are new to me, not really new, but I'm starting to get all the not really thrash related Axel Rudy Pell. I'm starting to pick up. This one's a 97 one, and apparently from what I read online, this one here, which is Magic, is one of their top 3 or 4 albums. So I'm going back, and I think I'm collecting the whole back catalog now, because I mean his stuff is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And the other one I picked up was a release from last year, and this was I think number 12 in my top 20, Godthrim, Distortion. So it's a Doom, a very monumental Doom album. So from the Great Britain, amazing tracks. I mean, there's some long ones on here that go around 8 to 11 minutes, but boy, they don't feel like that. And just really cool. So some great stuff there. I waited for it to come down a little bit in price. It was hovering around that $40 mark for a good 6 months, and then it bam dropped down. I was like, oh, I'm picking this up. So sometimes I need to do that. It's great to get those pre-orders, but right now everything seems to be going up in price so much that you get a chance to get something a little bit more affordable, you jump right on it. So and that's and just a side note too, for any Satan fans out there, Satan just released their first single for their new album that's coming out in September 13th, I think it is. So they're always a really solid band. That's their last album was Smokin', and it's going to be a really good album. The single is amazing, and the video is pretty cool too. So check that out.
Cool. You all good there, Jim?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, cool. Just on the wood spinning, keeping in the spirit of not necessarily thrash. I don't know how much of a glare there is there.
It looks wicked.
So this is an awesome album from 1990. It's a U.S. prog metal band called Psychotic Waltz. Not like super well known, but I mean the songwriting and musicianship is fantastic. If you like something like the early Fates Warning albums, I think you'll enjoy this stuff. It's got some higher register vocals as well, but again, I can't recommend the musicianship enough. And finally, this stuff was just reissued on vinyl, so for a collector like me, that was big news. Um, just in terms of two items, I thought maybe one of you guys would got this. There was an interview with Anthrax members Benante and Ian posted yesterday, Metal Hammer, and they gave a thorough update on the new album. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So they're 13 to 14 songs written.
Nice.
They're saying one track that they have largely completed. Well, for starters, he said not a single song is complete yet. So that'll give you an idea of us not hold our breath in terms of timing. But one track he said is going to be very much like In the End from Worship Music. It's turning out in that style. But what I thought was like incredibly odd is he said three songs will sound like nothing the band has ever done or ever recorded in the history of the band. So
Mm.
everyone's speculating what the heck does that mean, right?
Well, it could be good or bad. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly, right. So, but he refused to give any hints. They were asking him, "Well, what does that mean?" And he's like, "Well, you'll find out." So Joey's done vocals on 9 of them, and the other 4 tracks he hasn't because Scott's still writing the lyrics
Okay.
for them. So still kind of very much in progress. So that's kind of very hot off the press. Then the only other thing, I don't know if you guys saw this. Well, I don't know if it's news, but it kind of rubbed me the wrong way, so I'm gonna mention it. So one of my favorite websites online is actually Jimmy out your way, Eastern Canada, metalrules.com.
Oh yeah.
And so they've been around since 93 or 94, and I've been following them right from the very beginning. I love it. And I'm not going to name names, but there's no stupid pop-ups and craziness when you go on the website. So it's nice and organized to read. But they just did an interview the other day with Mark from Death Angel and Kerry King. And so we were chatting about him recently. So the interviewer asked him, "Well, what's it like to sing the Slayer songs in the set list?" So I don't know. This kind of bothered me a bit, but so Mark said, "Well, I love singing them because he's a fan, so that's cool. I get that as a singer." But he was very clear to say he's extremely confident that he could do the music justice. And he was kind of saying his range is well suited to Tom. And this kind of bugged me. He kind of said, but he can still do the high notes that Tom used to be able to do in his youth.
Oh,
Um,
slag.
so that was a bit of then he went on to say, yeah, there's one challenging piece like Tom's phrasing when he does like sings really fast. Like that takes him a bit to get used to, but I didn't like that comment that he could still do
No.
the high
Oh,
notes.
he slagged him.
Just kind of that just I was reading the interview today. It's a pretty good interview, so if anyone wants to read it, he gives sort of his thoughts, mainly focused on Kerry King. You're not going to get the Death Angel stuff, but that kind of bothered me a bit. But
Yeah.
anyway, those are the two items I had.
What a dick.
I don't know. And I guess you never know, right? Like these interviews. So it was done in written. So I guess they did it over email or something. So I don't know. Maybe something got messed up in the translation. I guess you never really know.
True.
But anyways. Okay, so Tankard, let's jump to the bio, then we'll hit some questions. So Tankard, of course, from Germany, formed in 1982, known as part of the German Big Four or Teutonic Thrash Big Four, along with creators Sodom and Destruction. I think I'm not going out on a limb here to say they pretty much stuck with traditional thrash and their style out their discography. Of course, there's a heavy focus, and we'll talk more about that in beer and alcohol. And drinking themes, but in fairness, there was some that wasn't tied to that as well. Not a lot, but there's some. 18 full-length albums, so very consistent output. Loads of band changes. I'm not going to get into all the ins and outs. The lineup today, and sometimes with German names, I might mess this up, but there's two original members still in the band. So the singer, Andreas Jeremia. So he's the one main constant. The bass player, Frank Thorworth. On guitar, they have Andreas Goodjar. He's been there since '99, so kind of sits in the middle of the band's history. And then brand new on drums is Gerd Lucking. Now, the album we're going to talk about today comes from a time in Tankard's history where they actually had two guitarists versus just the one now. So on the album, we're going to talk about Chemical Invasion. The additional members there on guitar was Axel Katzman and Andy Bulgaropoulos. I'm guessing that sounds very Greek, not
Yeah.
German.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, and Oliver Werner on drums. So those are those three guys with the bass and Gare on vocals. So that's kind of the history of the band. They've stayed true to their image and music and theme. But anything you guys want to add on the bio?
No, I think you got it good. That's what they basically are.
Yeah.
The only thing I'll say is like maybe they're comparable to Overkill for being the consistent style. Although I will say Overkill has deviated from time to time, but they're probably the two most consistent thrash metal bands ever. I would think.
And
Yeah.
I think this is one of the German bands that could really fit into the American style bands.
That's right.
Their sound is very like the album we're going to talk about, 1987, I believe it was. I mean, this album sounds freaking amazing, and the production on it I thought was really good. And a lot of their albums are like that. And I saw an interview with Gare from the Metal Voice, I think in 2001. Oh, there it is there. Wicked.
Yep.
Yeah, great.
And an interview with Gare, and they still have like regular day jobs, and they do this. Yeah, it's really cool. But to hear him talk to Jimmy K, it was really neat because they're a really close-knit band. They were in the middle of they were just, I think, 6 months out of releasing Pavlov's Dogs, so their newest release. And but they love doing festivals and doing a lot of touring and stuff like that. And I think just listening to them talk about the other members and the passion for music, a lot of bands could really learn a lot from Tankard in that sense. And I got to be honest with you, I've been like preparing for this podcast and just going through my Tankard collection and streaming a lot of Tankard, and man, it is some really good stuff. I don't know. I rated them on our, when we did our creator one, I think 4th out of the 4, but these guys really, even more so than a lot of the American bands, are super consistent, like you said, Ken. More so like an Overkill to some degree.
Yeah. I like Gary's like pretty well spoken when you right, like he's like I know he works in the healthcare industry, so you wouldn't think that of like a metal singer. Like I think I could be wrong, but mental health, like he helps people with
cool.
mental health issues. So cool. Yeah, no, to Jim's point, yeah, they all seem to have day jobs, and yeah, I think that's a good point too, right? They're very consistent. Like I think like they did have a couple albums that were sort of average, like along the way. As Overkill did too. I think I kind of lost a bit of track on them, like in the 2000s or so, right? Like, and I just kind of lost them. But yeah, as Jim said, prepping for this, it kind of got me excited again, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right. So on that note, although we're all praising Tankard, so it may not fit with the first question, but I think this is fair to say. It's usually something I always see. So generally speaking, the German Big Four, again, we got Creator, we got Destruction, we got Sodom, and we got Tankard. And so I think it's safe to say Tankard didn't obtain certainly the international popularity that the other three German bands did. Certainly not touring like outside of Europe like many of those other top three bands did. So, I mean, I always sort of viewed them as the fourth of those top four. So the question to you guys is, do you think they deserve that fourth spot, or would you, no disrespect to the band, but would you replace them with another German band? So Ken, why don't you tackle this one?
No, I don't think I'd replace them. There aren't really that many other bands that you could replace them with.
Mm.
Plus, I've always kind of considered Tankard very close to Anthrax in the way that they're ranked, as Anthrax is number 4. Tankard and Anthrax are very similar bands. I mean, yeah, they're kind of goofy. They both have goofy lyrics at times, but I kind of compared the two of them in a lot of ways, just the way they handle their music and the style. So I don't see other bands replacing Tankard. Like, okay, maybe you want to make an argument for Holy Moses, maybe Paradox, or even maybe Necronomicon. Those three bands have a lot of output, but I don't know if they're as consistent as Tankard. So I would, to be honest, no, I'd say no. I think Tankard deserves their ranking. And if you even listen to the first three albums are absolutely amazing. They're like they're punk infused. The lyrics are serious for the most part. I love the style of those albums. So no, I don't necessarily feel like they should be replaced.
No, that's a good point. How about you, Jim?
Oh, I agree with Ken 100%. I think they were more like, when you think about it, Anthrax, I don't always get slapped as the number 4. And I don't necessarily think that's fair, because a lot of people, when you read a lot of the comments online, a lot of people are saying, well, they sing a lot about horror themes, and so do these guys. And they're maybe a little comical, maybe the rap crossover. But in all fairness, that was pretty cool to try. I thought, I mean, the whole thing with Public Enemy beat the hell out of Aerosmith and Run DMC to me. Like, holy cow, But this band is real. I think this band is. They're in like a really tough Big Four, and unlike the American Big Four, where you can't debate Slayer shouldn't be there, but Slayer's retired right now. So
that's right.
Like one part of the Big Four is not even doing anything. Excuse me. And then you have, so in my mind, Anthrax, I mean, and Slayer, in all fairness, in the back end of their catalog, was definitely not putting out the output that they once were. And then Metallica, well, obviously Metallica is usually everybody's first. My first is Megadeth. I think they put out a lot more consistent stuff, but Tankard, I don't know. They're in such a tough Big Four. I mean, you've got Creator, and you brought it up, Billy, with the coming to the West. I don't know if Tankard's ever even toured the U.S. or Canada, and if they have, it's been very limited.
Yeah, the odd festival, that's about it. Like they did Maryland Death Fest the odd time.
And I think maybe what's limiting them, I mean, if you look at their catalog, they started off on Noise Records, and then they kind of jump around a little bit. But I think they've got a really good cult following fan base, and I think that's what really at this point of their career, I think they're really doing it for their own fan base plus themselves, and I really dig that. They're not really taking a lot of chances, which is good. I'm a guy who likes my thrash metal, generally thrash metal, and I find they just keep putting out really, really good stuff. Those, and to back up what Ken said, those first few albums are phenomenal. I mean, and the one we're going to talk about, the album number 2, is just it's amazing and sounds so good, and that can fight with any of those albums at the time. I mean, some of the stuff on that sounds like early Metallica, some of it sounds like Anthrax. I'll bring that up, and it's just really, really cool. And the biggest thing I found with their music is find everybody, all the instruments, all the musicians and the vocals all get the same sort of kind of a showcase to some degree. It's not like something's drowned out. You can hear really good parts of the songs with almost everybody gets kind of an equal cut. That's the way I heard it. That really made me excited to really get back into this album.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I guess I land where you guys landed as well. I don't know when I thought of the question whether I thought I would replace them, but as I, doing our top 10 list, like that helped me, right? Because then you're picking your top 10 German bands. So could one of those, because it would have to be one of those that would replace them. And I think given they have 18 albums, like I look at my top 3 to 5, nobody even has half that output. And out of my top 5, probably many of them toured the same or less outside of Europe. So you can't beat them there, right? So yeah, I think you got to keep them there, right? Like it's just due to the sheer output and again, the quality of the stuff. It's very different in the US, right? Because I would, and it's a matter of personal taste. We've talked about this, but like I would put Overkill in the top 4, Testament over Anthrax. But again, you could easily debate that because both those bands has as many or probably has double the albums Anthrax has. So you can kind of make a case there. But here in the German side, yeah, I agree with you guys. We got to keep Tankard in there. So,
but the other thing, Billy, is what doing my due diligence with the German thrash bands. A lot of them put out very small amount of material. Like some of them were even like one-off albums in the 80s and stuff. And I got to be honest, it was really cool because that was a good thing to do and leave the big 4 off because, we all know they would be in our top 4 probably to some degree. Well, they would be. We kind of said it. And to kind of dig through, I was like, oh yeah, I remember that band, but they only had 2 albums. Oh, they got together for some festivals in the 2000s, but that's about it. And it's just like, wow, there's so many of those bands.
Yeah.
Or the other thing is they put out a couple albums, then broke up and then reformed because there's a lot of German thrash bands now that reformed in the last 10 to 15 years. So that's kind of interesting too.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah, no, for sure. Or some that just we don't even know whether they quit or we don't know what the hell's going on.
That's true. That there's a couple like
there's a bit of that too. Okay.
Yeah.
So we've already hit on this a few times. So Tankard certainly has an image. So whether it's fair or not, like I think it's fair because the band, I just saw them live at the Wacken Festival, and they certainly play up the drinking theme, and the album covers play it up, and even the album we're going to talk about today, some of the songs are just nothing about drinking beer. So they definitely have that image. So do you think that hurts them in terms of getting more success, whether that be international or wherever? Jim.
I don't know. I like it. I mean, I kind of got like the first album, Zombie Attack, was kind of, there's a lot of horror themed stuff on there and kind of fun stuff, but there's a lot of drinking stuff on there. For me, who's an avid beer drinker, this is right up my alley. And I mean, I know when this came out, in the mid 80s there, the album we're going to talk about is 87. I was only 16 at the time and just starting out my trek into drinking, but maybe in the North America, in Germany, I mean, I've been to Germany. The drinking is a part of way of life to some degree, especially the beer. I mean, it's huge. I think it's kind of a natural thing, but for them, maybe they kind of dance a little too much with it, and maybe that could be part of the reason why. But I like it. I think it's cool for me, and I wouldn't want to change it for myself. But maybe that could be what maybe held them back a little bit from hitting the same successes as Creator and Sodom and that. But on the flip side to that too, they sing a lot about, like, especially Creator, with a lot more aggressive lyrical content. So I don't know. It could be a bit of a trade-off, but maybe it's just the time or whatever. But I wouldn't want to change it for the world. I love it.
Okay, cool. So Ken, I'm interested in your take because you're a man who sort of cares about lyrics. And this album, I actually, for one of the first times, I read all the lyrics.
Oh,
And some of these lyrics are the dumbest. I mean, as much as I love
is
this
it for you?
album,
Yeah,
are the
yeah.
absolute dumbest lyrics. So I'm going to ask you, what do you think about the same question? Do you think it hurts them?
Well, it can a little bit. I think the trouble with this band is they're goofy in the way they appear. Like, okay, so you have the mascot, you have the Tankard alien. They introduced him on the EP from '89, and that's cool. But I've noticed majority of the album covers have,
Just so people know who we're talking about, that's the
the
alien
Tankard alien.
EP,
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like
and the mascot. Yeah.
every cover pretty much is kind of, there's a handful that aren't goofy, but the majority of them have this goofy image. So I could see people looking at that going, it's okay. If you compare that to, say, Creator, who always had something vicious,
Yeah.
or even Sodom. Sodom's album covers are off the charts, and even Destruction. So I mean, they're a little the odd step. I don't know what you'd want to call them, the odd little brother. Sometimes, or like the black sheep of the family. I kind of think, but I don't mind the lyrics. I mean, I don't mind the. I think I like the first. I like the first. Anything in like the late '80s to early '90s is okay for me, but it gets a little repetitive after a while. Like the modern stuff, I don't like as much. I mean, I'll listen to it, and it's
Yeah.
good thrash, but I find it boring as hell. It's like, okay, like it's great, but there's not enough deviation. So I don't know if it's really hurt them. It might a little bit, but I think Jimmy's got a good point. Like if they are a consistent, solid band. Either you like it or you don't. I mean,
Mhm.
I think that's what happens. Like you're either going to fall into the camp. I mean, I've kind of followed on the other side where it's like I like them, but I'm not. I'm not admittedly a huge fan. I don't mind them, but I'll take Destruction and Creator before I'd take Tankard any day of the week, even Sodom.
You
But
know, and Ken, you're
yeah,
right. Kind of a light bulb when you were talking for me is when we were young and we go into the record store, you had Tankard album covers just talking about the artwork, going against Iron Maiden, going against
yeah,
Grim Reaper, going against Creator, going against the Destruction album covers. And what are you going to spend your money on? Like you say, a cartoony kind of fun thing,
Iron
or
Maiden, dude, Iron
yeah,
Maiden.
good point. Good point.
Iron Maiden. I mean, I have nothing against the mascot. I think the mascot's actually kind of
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
I don't mind it, but you can tell like their image is not, they don't take their image as serious. So that might be the reason why they're number four out of the four. But I don't know. Maybe there's someone will argue with me and say these guys are the greatest thing since sliced bread. And I'm sure there are people who have that opinion.
Oh, yeah. There must
Me
be. Yeah.
personally, I don't personally,
Yeah.
but you know.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm kind of with you, right? Like the early stuff. And like, as I said before, I kind of lost track of the band. I did like their last album, and we'll
Yeah.
get to
Yeah.
that. But I did lose track, right? A couple of the early 90s stuff was still pretty good. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, I mean, as I've said before, I'm not a big lyric guy, right? So I know, Ken, you are. So I often don't even, but I could just even hear the lyrics in these songs, right? And so, yeah, I don't know, it's a bit repetitive, some of the themes, and gets a bit
Yeah.
silly, but it's still great, well-written songs. So yeah, I don't get too fussed, but like then I was thinking, like, so they have a very serious image, this drinking thing. So I was trying to think, are there any like other bands that have such a strong image like this? Like Anthrax is on and off with their funniness, but the only thing are like some of those pirate bands, like
Oh
uh,
yeah, yeah, yes.
Storm, like that. That's the only other example I have of like an image to a more extreme like this. Do you guys know of any other bands?
Well, there's
Or
um
Guar maybe would be one.
Guar.
Yeah,
Running Wild would be another one because they
Yeah,
have a
running.
very
yeah, a
I
little
love
bit.
Running Wild. I think they're great. They have a very consistent kind of sort of piratey, drinking, merry kind of theme to their music. So that would be a few.
Yeah.
Maybe not to the extent of Tankard though.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's interesting. Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. Okay, cool. So on the again, this is a great segue. So looking at, I mean, 18 albums. So the next question is, if you had to pick three, what three would you pick? So Jim, I'll start with you.
What out of the best albums?
Or your
Three
three
albums
favorite Tankard albums.
that
Oh,
you like.
well, I'd go with
Album
the first
covers.
three. Yeah, album covers. Oh, the
Oh
first
no, not
three.
album covers. This is
Sorry,
just what are your three? We'll do album
Oh,
covers
three.
coming up.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
My first three, I love them. Like Zombie Attack is amazing. I think Chemical Invasion is a bit of a step up and is a great record. And The Morning After is great too. I mean, that's a wicked album, and I love that. I lost them in the late 90s, early 2000s to some degree. Very repetitive, but yeah, and I picked up Pavlov's Dogs in 2023. I thought it was a really good album, kind of a return to form. It would be cool. Hopefully, if they watch this, they'll do like maybe a rock opera, including beer with their scientist guy and their man. That would be wicked. We could, they could do that, and it would be awesome.
Yeah, they'll have to get the Sabotage guy, John Oliva, to help them write it all out. That'd be pretty funny.
That would be.
Well, yeah, those.
Seriously, the first three albums.
Yeah, it'll be hard to argue those. I have two of those in my top three. But before I reveal Ken, what are your favorite three Tankard albums?
Yeah, it's the first three
Oh,
automatically. The first three. Although I'm going to put this one in here. It kind of should be there. The Beauty and the Beer in 2006.
That's
I think that's a really good album.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a return to form to the older style. I like that album a lot too, but I would say the first three are the strongest for me.
Yeah, okay. And yeah, my third was a battle between Beauty and the Beer and the one I ended up picking. But so yeah, Chemical Invasion is my favorite. Then coming right after that will be the Morning After. And then, as I said, it was a debate, and I kind of went with this a little bit later. Two-Face.
Oh, yeah.
I actually like Two-Face, so I don't know. Maybe it's more what I've listened to lately, and I like the first two, and yeah, the first Zombie is great too. But those were the three I picked. So yeah, so moving along. So Jim, you already gave us your thoughts on Pavlov's Dog. Anything else you want to add before we go to Ken?
No, it's just a great album. I thought it was kind of a return to form. I thought it was exciting, and it's a cool artwork again, but still kind of got that cartoonish dogs with the keg. It's good. And I saw a lot of clips from not really the tour, but some of the festivals they did last year, showcasing a lot of the songs off that album. So that was kind of cool, and they're just a fun band. It was a fun album. I really liked it. I'd break that one out probably every month and give it a spin for sure. I really, really like it.
Nice. Ken?
Yeah, it's all right. I don't mind it. I don't like the cover at all. I'm not a fan of the goofy cover. I get tired of the goofy stuff. It's like it's all right, but but the music's actually pretty solid. I think Andreas is a really good vocalist, and he still sounds pretty good, albeit like 40 years later, he's still got a pretty good voice. So I have no problem with him at all. I mean, there's a bunch of songs on it that I like. I mean, like On the Day I Die, Dark Self Intruder, Metal Cash Machine's pretty good. Like there's a lot of crunchy guitars to it. It's a pretty solid album. But I tend to feel like all their albums in the later years sort of all kind of the sameness kind of style a little bit. And we, as we've been saying before, a lot of the German bands, the later material of all these bands, very much the same, very sameness style from album to album. They don't really, stray from their formula of each of the band's formulas. But yeah, I agree, Jimmy. It's one I would definitely listen to it often. It's pretty good.
So Ken, the alien mascot came in the EP in '89, was it?
Yeah, 89.
Yeah,
on the EP. Yeah, that's
that's the EP right here.
Nice,
yeah,
cool.
Yeah, so I'm kind of yeah, I liked you. I don't know why I didn't pull that one, but I pulled just about everything else. Pavlov's. So yeah, I thought it was pretty good, but I didn't think it was perfect. Maybe a bit like Ken. I mean, it's solid thrash. It's definitely Tankard. But like I did find like that album is like 55 or 56 minutes. It was
Bit
a
long.
bit long. Like a couple of the songs could have been trimmed back, I thought. Like they tend to get into it. Sometimes they'll overdo and repeat the same idea, and so sometimes I don't know that I noticed that in a few songs. But like a couple like the title track, I really like. Beerbarians is a great track. Dark Self Intruder,
Yeah.
Lockdown Forever, and Diary of Nihilist are like all my favorite tracks. But the others are, I find some weaknesses. But I mean, hell, if I can pull out like five good tracks out of an album, I guess that's a good news story. Okay, so then lastly, just in terms of artwork, I know we all like artwork. Any certain albums you guys want to call out in terms of artwork, Ken?
Yeah, the earlier stuff is pretty good. Sebastian Kruger was the original artist. He basically did, I think, the first 8 albums.
Hmm.
So he worked on all those. Like I like Stone Cold Sober from '92. That's
Yeah,
great. That's a
These
really
two
good
are. I
cover.
love these two.
Yeah, those
yeah,
are good. Yeah. The Morning After I like. The Morning
yeah.
After reminds me of a Destruction's Crack Brain. For some reason, it's just the way everything's laid out and it's craziness. I love that one. And I also like one of the modern ones I like is The Beast of Bourbon from 2004.
Hmm.
Michel Monteliet is the artist who did that. They never really, beyond Sebastian, they always like traded different artists over the years. So like the modern stuff, that's always someone new on it. But yeah, it's all kind of cool. I mean, I think that I like the earlier stuff more than the later stuff.
Okay, cool. Jim?
Yeah, I thought you brought up Two Faced. I thought that was a great album cover.
Yeah,
But I mean, yeah, the first I even like Zombie Attack where they're all sitting around the
yeah.
TV. That's kind of cool. Yeah, and then it does get kind of like a little bit kind of similar, but yeah, The Morning After and Chemical Invasion. I think Chemical Invasion is probably my all-time favorite Tankard album. So I was glad when Billy picked it because it's got the artwork and the music on it's a phenomenal. I don't think there's a bad. Well, we'll talk about it.
Yeah, yeah. And
No
yeah,
problem.
what I loved about like the morning after, and like there's so much detail in that artwork.
Yeah,
Like it's a bit
Yeah.
like looking at some of those meeting covers, right? Like where you can see
yeah,
all these little things in
Yep.
there. And then I don't know why I like it. Like, I guess it's a bit like Pavlov's dog to some degree. It's a bit one-dimensional, but I also always a bit like One
No.
Foot in the Grave.
Yeah.
that's a good.
I don't
Okay.
know. I thought that was pretty good. Also, Hair of the Dog, I thought was kind
Yeah,
of okay too. That I don't have on vinyl. I don't know why, but don't have that one. Okay, cool. So that kind of covers out the question. So on to the album Chemical Invasion, our deep dive. So we get a quick intro. Jim, any comments on the 17-second intro?
it sounds like me every Friday, Saturday night, or whenever I can. But I mean, yeah, it's pretty cool. Just gulping back a beer, with that cracking of the beer, and then there's an outro on this album too, so that's kind of cool. But hey, you know what? This is what it matches the front cover of it with the scientist working on looks like radio some sort of he's doing something to the beers, so that's pretty cool. Creating something better. But no, it's a great start to it. I think if you're gonna do like a little intro like this, you might as well make it fun and silly, and I think that's what it is. And it's kind of setting the pace for what Tankard to some degree is all about. But no, I think it's hilarious.
Yeah, no, I mean, 17 for me, it doesn't add
Yeah,
or subtract. I mean, you hear them taking the beer down and you get a burp, right? Like, I don't know.
yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
is there anything you would add, Ken? I know it's pretty brief.
Yeah, you guys said it all. It's fun. It just gets you going for what's to come next. But it's all right. I don't mind
Yeah.
it.
Okay. So then yeah, we move to the real songs next. Track number 2 is Total Addiction. Ken, I'll go to you first on this one.
Yeah, this one I like a lot. Like it's fast, it's very furious, riffing, very frenetic when it starts out.
Mhm.
I find there's like a punk vibe right off the bat on this one. And of course, when you're mentioning the lyrics, Billy, it's all about drug addiction. So they're talking about like cocaine, crack, and pills, and basically how it leads to being a waste of life if you become addicted. So I think it's actually kind of cool.
Yeah.
It's different from the let's just take a beer and drink and party, party, party.
Yeah.
There's a
Which
nice
we're gonna
riff at the
get plenty
one.
of that coming up.
Oh yeah, I know it for sure. There's a nice riff at the 142 mark that I kind of like that leads right into like that scream right at 2 minutes. He
Yeah.
screams and it's like whoa. So I like how it kind of sets the tone. A lot of gang shouts. Yeah, I think it's a pretty solid song overall for 3 minutes.
Yeah. Jim?
Yeah, like I mean, this is like the start of the album. To me, this could be if somebody didn't know they were a German band, I think they would think it was an American band. They
Yeah.
sound it's the production on this album is really tight, and I find this is a really tight song. It's fast, heavy, and but I find it's very clean for a German band. Like it's his vocals are really really great on it. It's got a cool guitar groove, and I love it how the riff intro with the drum trade off is pretty good. And they do that quite a bit in this album, which is pretty
Yeah.
neat. The kind of the guitar and the drums really play off each other. But Garrett's got that vocalization that's very high, kind of, but clean, not like high like Joey, but very like high enough, more so than a lot of the other German bands. I just think and it's got kind of if I was to sum this song up, it'd be a cleaner version of a Venom song, like much more
Yeah.
cleaner, way better production, has that kind of venomy sound, but to me the vocals are obviously a lot cleaner and a lot clearer, and same with a lot of the musicianship. So it's got kind of a bit of a Venom-esque, if I can use that sound to it, for me. But really really good song. And yeah, there's a cool punk vibe in there too.
Yeah, yeah. No, I like it too. And yeah, I agree. Like I think the vocals are really good. Like I like Gare's vocals.
Yeah.
He's probably it's not like, this was done in the not the late 80s, but sort of mid to
Yeah.
later 80s. And so unlike the early Sodom and Creator was verging on black metal, like they weren't going in that direction. And Destruction, he was far more manic and wild his vocal style than Gare was. So I actually like Gare. I think he does a good job. There's even to some degree some melody in what he's doing, especially in the choruses. Like Jim said, he's pretty clean. So
Yeah.
so I like it. Ken, you hit on the good backing vocals. Yeah, no, they're good at doing a song like this, like a good kind of thrash opening. Like, this one of the things I remember when I heard this versus the first, like this is a big upgrade in like musicianship and songwriting and production. But I guess that makes sense. The band's maturing and getting better at what they do. So, yeah, no, and then I like that main reoccurring riff. I think that's pretty cool, and I don't know if it's because the vinyl versions I have are sort of remastered versions. The bass is quite good. You actually get deep bass in a lot of these tracks, so I appreciate that. I don't know if they do it too much, but the drum work, there's some pretty cool like drum fills. Like
Yeah.
they come up into the almost every song has at least one or two. So I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, and Ken, you're right. Like the lyrics are not drinking, but they're a little bit cheesy too. Like the chorus is like let's fight, kick it, man. It's in your mind. Shoot it up, snort it up, live it up. Total addiction, smoke it up. Like it's pretty like basic stuff, but yeah, fair enough. It's not a drinking song. Um, so yeah, move on to track number three, Tantrum. Another relatively short one for the band. Jim, you want to take this one?
Yeah, this has got that fast bass pace, like in the middle of it as well. It's got a deep, good bass sound to it, and it's got a. I like how it kind of love the drum beat when it opens up, and then it kind of rips right into a solo fairly quick.
Yeah.
And they kind of have these offbeat kind of solos throughout the song, which is really cool. I mean, it's really, I like the shout vocals are cool for, controlled. And then the song slows a bit and then it kind of speeds back up right after a solo. But yeah, this is another great continuation of the song number two. And they mix it up just enough to make it that much different. I like it. I like it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a big fan of this one too, right? This one rips like right out of the gate, so
Yeah.
it's really cool. Musically, it's similar to the first track, but I think the guitar work is really good. The riff and the leads in here. I mean, the lyrics are pretty funny. I mean, the whole song's about he put his beer down, he went to pee, he came back, someone stole his beer, he looked under the couch, he checked the closet, it wasn't there, so he had a tantrum. Who stole his beer? Tantrum, you must die is essentially all the lyrics. So uh, it's kind of funny, but yeah, I think the vocal hooks are pretty good. I'm a big fan of that. I like sort of there's an echo effect on Gare's vocals, like he's doing the who. That's kind of
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's a fun song. Ken, what are you? Anything you want to add there?
Yeah, pretty much what you guys said is pretty much what this song is. I mean, yeah, the goofy lyrics, but you know what? The lyrics are kind of goofy, but I like the fact that the music is serious for the most part.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it kind of offsets the lyrics. Really, if you don't read the lyrics and you just hear the song, I
True.
don't think you'll pick up this how stupid the writing is. But but I don't mind it. It's one of the first earlier songs of them like crossing thrash metal with beer and partying. So I don't mind it. I like his screams. I like how he kind of
Yeah.
places
Yeah.
these screams in it. They kind of really help. I actually like the chorus. Tantrum, who stole my beer? Tantrum, you
It's
must
funny.
die. It's funny, but you know what? It kind of works. It doesn't make the song stupid or goofy. It just works for the song.
Yep.
I don't know. This is something I noticed, but maybe it's the style back then as opposed to how it is now. The modern sound with these kind of lyrics, they don't jive for me as much, but it kind of works on the older material. At least
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, to some degree, I'm probably I'm just calling it out because I think they're so funny,
Yeah.
right? Like in a
Yeah.
way, I feel a bit like a hypocrite because I'm the guy saying lyrics don't matter. In every one out of 24 podcasts, all of a sudden I'm going to make a stand on lyrics here. It's just that they're so interesting in a funny kind of way that I call it out. But I don't know. And maybe Ken, like part of that is just them learning English back then, right?
True. For
This,
sure.
they're very straightforward and basic, but maybe that was just them. They may not have been perfect in English at the time.
Could be.
And that's a good point because on the interview I saw, Gare said they would write. Obviously, they had to write in English, so they'd write a lot of stuff in German to try to get the translation right. And that is a good point. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah. So I don't know. We can't be too hard on them, I guess.
Mm.
So Ken, over to you on this one. Track number four, Don't Panic.
Yeah, I like this song. This I wrote down refreshing lyrics because
Yeah, exactly.
again, it's a trope. So we're going back to like global disaster,
Yeah.
war, disease, environmental issues, which I don't mind. There's a nice greasy guitar in the beginning that sort of has a bit of a Motorhead vibe, which I kind of like. And I like the line where he says, "Don't panic, it's just our world."
Yeah.
47 seconds in, he says that. And then the riffing goes off, and it's just like you get these galloping chugs, which is great. And then the song the main riff is, I really like the main riff quite a bit.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really nice, good tempo changes here when you get to the 3 minute mark. And then, you like there's the chug right into the end is great. I think it's a pretty decent song. And I just love when he kind of repeats the whole kind of "don't panic, it's just our
Yeah.
world." and the song ends. I kind of like it. I like it for that reason.
Yeah, no, lots of same points I had. Jim, why don't you jump in before I give my thoughts?
He said the exact same, like that whole "Don't panic, it's just our world." I mean, the change ups in the song, though, it's worth mentioning, are really, really cool. I find the solos kind of like ignite, kind of take the song in a different direction. So I kind of think that's pretty interesting. It's got a great guitar intro, and yeah, those chugs are amazing. Yeah, this is a good one. This would be in the top half of the album for me. Still not my favorite. They're coming up, but a great song.
Yeah, no, I'm with you guys too. Like, I think I don't know if I actually found like the opening, the guitar sort of playing. It almost feels like '70s style to me,
Yeah,
like '70s kind of hard rock is. But then it quickly, obviously, switches to like thrash mode. And yeah, I noted that too. I love that "Don't Panic." It's just our world, and yeah, there's some really cool pace changes in the song. Like I just past the minute mark. There's some interesting changes in direction and some pretty cool detailed like bass work. They do a
yeah,
little 30-minute musical passage there. And then I get like back into like this hard rock mode for a bit, which I guess is what Ken, what you referred to with the Motorhead thing.
Yeah.
And at 3 minutes, I think you mentioned this, but all of a sudden you're just pounded with the double bass like drumming out of nowhere. So that kind of comes out pretty cool. And as you guys said, the main riff is great as well. So yeah, I think we all aligned there. So track number 5, unfortunately, takes a different direction. Jim, you want to tackle this one?
I mean, what is it? 58 seconds long.
Yeah.
So, but
Puke.
this is one of those fast kind of punk sounding songs. I mean, the fast
Yeah.
vocals, fast song. I think it's a great song. I love the puke, drink too much with the throw up, kind of the barfing sounds. Kind of, it's a silly thing, but it's really funny. And hey,
Yeah.
I like it. I think it's fine. It for 58 seconds, kind of call it, I guess, a song, but he put lyrics to it and jumped in there. So I think it's just the end of a really rough night, I guess, and those last 58 seconds of when you had one too many beer.
Yeah, no, exactly. And then the other part of the chorus is like, oh, vomit on the chair, even
Yeah,
in the chair, right? Like, so, but yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm with you. I don't think, I mean, this one's like a fast, punky kind of a track, but I don't really have anything to add. Ken, anything on your side?
Yeah, it's the kind of song I would relate to as a teenager because listening to this, like, who didn't drink your face off and then puke it all up afterwards? I mean,
oh
we've all
yeah,
done that as a teenager. It's just a ritual of life, right?
yeah.
Being a teenager. But so I think it's kind of cool. I do like that scream though at 39 seconds in where he makes that piercing scream. I love it. I love his screams on this. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of I kind of find the riffing is sort of going in Destruction territory. That a lot of the riffing style reminds me of Destruction. They're very comparable to Destruction in a lot of ways. So but I think the song's all right.
Okay. So now we're moving to an interesting track.
Oh
So
yeah.
it's a long one. It's almost 7.5 minutes, and it's an instrumental.
Oh
So
yeah.
often we've been saying bands should do more instrumentals. So we get a big one here. So Ken, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, this isn't bad for 7 minutes. It's melodic and brooding right at the beginning. You get the acoustic guitars, and then it kicks in that kind of heavy riffing at the 140 mark. There's some nice chugs halfway through it. I like when the guitars kick in. There's a bit of a twangy. Some of the guitars are kind of twangy at times, and you start. It's okay. I don't mind it. I wish there was a bit more soloing though. There doesn't seem to be a lot of that in this. But I like the end. What I like about when you get like 5 minutes in, you start getting this chug, it's speedy, and then you get that kind of galloping twang that they add on, which is a bit of a different wrinkle. But I don't mind it as a song. I think it's pretty good for an instrumental.
Yeah, no, Yeah, like I agree with you. Like I don't think there's as much like solos as there could.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe 7.5 minutes is a bit long,
Hmm.
given you don't get that, but there's lots to like about it. Like this is again where I find the guitar style kind of shifted a bit, right? Like a little bit more like hard rock at times, like at 4:45 before it goes into the thrash gallop, as you mentioned, Ken. Like I almost hear some like Michael Schenker influence,
Right.
fellow German there, like and at the intro as well. And this is the only song that guitarist Andy Bulgaropoulos gets any writing credit for. So I guess this is sort of his baby, if you will. But even like at times, it even went slightly jazzy. Again, not in a big way, but
Mm.
like he did try to take it in a couple of different directions. So I appreciate that. But yeah, I think my main note here is, it's not next level instrumental, but for where the band was at, I think it's pretty good, but may not have needed to be 7 minutes. Is my thought. But Jim, over
Yeah.
to you.
Oh, I think it's for them. I mean, this is their second album. I think this is their musical magnum opus on this album. I like it. I think it's cool, man. I love it how the picking starts off with the acoustic and then it kind of leads in. And at around 226, the more heavier guitar, it starts building up like at 140, and then it starts getting heavier and thicker. But yeah, I think it's like they're infusing thrash, jazz, a lot of maybe some classic rock in there, which will
Yeah.
lead into the song number 7 for sure. But I think, and some of the words that you guys use, like galloping and the chug, and that definitely in this, I think it's really cool. I think it's great they did because I'm always, I love it when they do. I find bands do too short of their instrumentals. This one, I would have liked lyrics and I would have liked a voice to this song. I think it would have been really cool. But I can appreciate, I just think it's musically, it's spot on. And I think it really shows off their chops. It's not ultra violence next level, Death Angel, but it's
Yeah.
definitely for their second album, probably, a lot more maturing as musicians. I think this is
Hmm.
a great song to showcase that on this album. But it's funny because they have a 7 minute here, and then they've got an outro and intro, and then a 58-second song. So it's kind of like, holy cow, this whole album is going in so many different directions. There's not
Yeah.
really, doesn't seem like there's much of a plan to it. Other than the intro and the outro, which just kind of bookends the song, or bookends the album. But no, I think it's a great song.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So that brings us to we'll stay with you, Jim, the
I
title track, um,
love the song.
Chemical Invasion. What are your thoughts?
Oh, I love this song. It's probably one of my favorite. I love it how it starts off. So kind of takes off from the interlude of the instrumental. I find it has a southern rock start to it with an AC/DC mixed with ZZ Top kind of vibe to it. Then
Mm.
it kind of, it kind of, the vocals cut in till the vocals cut in, and then it goes into more of an anthraxy groove for me. A really cool heavy thrash song from then on. At 340, 339, the guitar solo, and it has kind of a little bit of a distortion sound to it. I
Yeah.
think the drums too, how the drums how they work the drums in the production. They almost, I mean, it's just regular drum beat, but in parts of it, it sounds almost like there's bongos. And it's kind of cool. Like it's kind of an echoey drum effect they have. I really like that. But I think it leads from that kind of southern rock, classic rock kind of intro to where it goes into a really punk anthrax crossover groove for me. But this is one of my favorites on the album.
Cool. Ken?
Yeah. It's kind of funny because you're going back to the lyrics there, Billy. It's
Yeah.
funny because they're trying to you're reading about the song and the lyrics, like, okay, so they're trying to criticize the idea of people using chemicals to make beer, which is kind of funny. I don't know. I guess they're trying to be serious for a second. Okay, fair enough. But the song itself, like I see I felt it was more like a funky twang for me when it started, but yeah, it's different. They're trying something a bit different. And what I do think is what Jimmy didn't mention, which I think should be mentioned, at 39 seconds, he says, "Stop the chemical invasion." It's
Oh
so
yes.
great. And then it stops, goes back into the music, like you get music, and then he doesn't start singing until 122. So I think that's kind of interesting. He just like,
Yeah.
he got your attention. Oh, we go back into a little bit more interlude, and then at 122 he starts singing. But yeah, this has a lot of really really nice speed, raunchy speed guitars. I can see
Yeah.
the Anthrax. I can pick out the Anthrax here. I can sort of see where they would use this kind of style. But this is a good song. This is a really strong song as well.
Yeah. I think it might be my favorite on the album.
Mhm.
Like it was great, like to hear this. Tankard played this. They played one or two songs from this album at Vakken 2 weeks ago. So yeah, I would had a big smile on my face as this was playing. So that's pretty cool.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think yeah, I agree with you. Like I love it when Gare sort of shouts, stop the
Yeah.
chemical invasion, right? Like it's so cool. And I guess I get the song, right? Like, because here at Chemical Invasion, like I did, like maybe I'm such a big Sodom fan, I go to war. So I'm thinking like, is this like
Yes.
chemical weapons from
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
the
exactly.
wars, like, and then you read it, but like, so it really is, and I can see where it's coming from, like being a big beer fan and going to Germany so many times, and it's about the German purity laws of beer, right? Like they have these recipes that are like hundreds of years old. Not like as and so like they have these perfected recipes, right? So it's not about messing with those old recipes. Like they tend to not like in North America we have all craft beer, and like all these small little batches, and they're putting crazy shit in there like fruits and like chocolate cake and coffee. Like you're not
Blueberry.
going to see that there, right? Like, and I like our beer, I like their beer, but like it's funny too because at one point he's like, we would be poisoned with import beer, uh,
Yeah.
if it were to come over, right? Because again, they take their beer like seriously, and their beer is these super old recipes, right? So I guess I get the song, but yeah, again, straightforward, right? Yeah, the chorus is, I think this is like the best chorus on the album, and it's as simple as chemical invasion, fight for your right
Yeah.
to drink pure beer, chemical invasion, it's your right, the time is here. But it works, right? Like it's my
Yep.
favorite chorus on the album, so yeah, I'll leave it there. And so the next track is not too politically correct or friendly.
No.
I think we're kind of getting into the Cannibal Corpse territory to some degree here. But so Ken, you can start with this one. Farewell to, I feel bad saying it, but to
Go
us
for it.
is the name of the track.
Yeah, this
I
is
think my
like
voice went down as I said that word too.
yeah, that's all right. I mean, I'll be it's a very provocative song for sure
Yeah.
because you all their lyrics are about like a toxic relationship, and then the chorus basically says it all. It's like,
Damn
you
whore.
damn whore, I'm sick of your shit. Like, and then when you get to the second passage, I like, hell, what should it do with such a bum with a burned slut? Too stupid to love, too ugly to fuck. I mean, seriously, hiding and scolding, boring all night. The longer it lasts, the worse it becomes. It's like, wow, what an indictment of the person that pissed him off or whoever they're angry about. But
And
putting all
man,
that
I didn't
aside,
want to say the title. Look at what Ken said on the podcast.
that's okay, dude. You have to be like true to this shit. Like, if
Yeah.
you're gonna talk about it, you have to just like pull no punches. You go for it. But putting that aside, like the actual song is pretty strong. It's a lot of the opening riff is great. It's a lot of a lot of like blistering frenzy style to it. It really kicks in after 26 seconds.
Yeah.
There's a lot of nice change. The solo at 144 is really good. This starts to remind me of Destruction. There's a lot of elements where I'm hearing like early Destruction in some of the way with the solo and the riffing. I like the second half where it gets almost like there's a doom sound in the second half. Like that was kind of an interesting directional change for
Yeah.
me. But I think it's a really strong song, other than the lyrics, of course.
Yeah, like kind of doomy and atmospheric in that part,
Yeah,
I find,
Like
in the
symphonic.
second half.
which was pretty cool. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if I had anything to add. I like the track. It's a fast track, and yeah, like the for me the best part are the this is some of the best like guitar lead trade-offs.
Yeah.
I had it at 150, but yeah, Ken, you had a 145. So typically we're always a few seconds off. But yeah, and those lead trade-offs last about 45 seconds. So that's kind of right up my alley. So I really like that. Yeah, no, and then yeah, we already talked about the lyrics, so nothing to add there. Jim, over to you.
Well, I mean, they wrote a love song to some degree. I mean, maybe Air Supply could do a cover of this. But anyways, yeah,
Air
definitely,
Supply.
definitely a heavy on the cancel agenda for I think definitely the title and the lyrics are fairly dated and wouldn't hold up to today's
No.
demands, so to speak. But yeah, musically the song's really really cool. I find at 240 I find they give a little bit of a nod to maybe German, like you guys brought up a bit of doom in that. I kind of got out of it like maybe a nod to German symphonic metal,
Mm.
kind of like a little bit of a shot of that. But yeah, cool song musically, lyrically, kind of just tongue in cheek. But yeah, like Ken said, I don't know who pissed him off, but he really shredded them in the song.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. So, Jim, we'll stick with you. Then we're getting into this one's a monster. I'm with 8 minutes. Trader, what are your thoughts here?
One of my favorite songs on the album. So this would be like right up there with Chemical Invasion, Trader, that fast intro. I find this one's got that early Metallica vibe, especially in the intro. It's got a wicked groove, and this is definitely something to mosh to. This is a moshing song. I mean, it's so cool, and the chorus, traitor, liar, loser. It's got kind of a bit of a maybe kind of bordering on a little bit of more of a darker thrash vibe, but I really really like it. It's this song's got it all. One of my top songs on the album.
Cool. And it's not about beer.
No,
No.
right.
Not about beer.
Jen, your thoughts?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I like this is a good song for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
I mean, like it sort of harks back to Zombie. I kind of their first album. It has that
Yes.
kind of dark thrash vibe. But I love the lyrics because he's so pissed off in the way that he delivers all these lines about, they're sort of attacking other musicians who sell out for fame and fortune. And then they start criticizing those who had abandoned their integrity and original values for commercial success. So first thing that comes to mind is Metallica to me, because
Yeah.
they're the band that are the most erroneous for this perfect lyrical song that they're trying to attack. It's a long song, of course, but the vocals are great and good gang shouts, and he really sounds pissed off. I totally love. I love like the kinetic energy and the violent riffing throughout. It's great, and I agree with Jim with that chorus. The traitor,
Yeah.
liar, loser. Like he lays it
Gives
on
it.
thick, but it's so great. It's a really really good song.
Yeah, no, I think you guys hit on most of that, right? And this track also probably because of the 8 minute runtime, but has some of the best guitar leads and solos. So they really have some blistering sections on here. The song still does a pretty good job mixing up the tempos. That cool vocal effect pops up once or twice.
Yes.
On the vocals again, and I agree with you, Ken. I like Gare here. We already talked about it's not about beer, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, it's yeah, like I was gonna say, it's a good way to end the album, because in a way it ends the album from their writing perspective.
Right.
So Ken, we'll stay with you because that'll move us into a quick 2 minute track, which is a cover song. Oh, and what a surprise! It's called "Alcohol" by
Yeah,
Gangrene.
by
What are your
Gangrene.
thoughts, Ken?
We don't. I like it, but it doesn't need to be here. I think they should have ended it at track 9.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think you needed it. Like, okay, I guess you're trying to put it on here to prove that you, well, maybe to prove a point that, well, we're punky, we got a punk vibe, so we're gonna put a punk vibe. And there's nothing wrong with the song covering that song. Like, it's
Mm.
catchy, it's moshy, it's kind of got some greasy bluesy guitars. Like, okay, I mean, I did sample the original Gangrene
Same
song
here.
yeah,
just to compare, because I'm not versed in Gangrene. I know of the name, but I'm not I don't really follow that band. So I was like, okay, so it's comparable. I mean, they did a nice job, but I don't think they needed it. I think track 9 should end the album, period. But
yep.
I'm not sure why it's on there, but
Yeah, I'm with you, so I'll leave it there. No need to say the same thing. Jim, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I sampled. I got to be honest, I wasn't familiar with the original, so I listened
yeah,
to it, and I mean, they did, I guess, a good job because it sounded pretty similar, but maybe a bit heavier. But again, I would have ended it at 9. This is technically the end of the album, and you end it with a cover, and I mean, maybe a good pick for one, I guess, a little off the wall, but still, I would have ended it at 9. 9 was the high point, one of the high points of the album
yeah,
for me. So it would have been great to just end it there and not even bother with track 10.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
And it's kind of like they're tripling down on the alcohol
Yeah.
thing, right?
yeah, exactly.
You want to do a cover, fine, do a cover, but do something like that's totally different. Uh,
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
yeah, don't keep up the same theme. But anyways, and then of course I don't know if anyone has anything to say about the outro. 7 seconds. You can hear them like give me a beer and then the
Give me a
last
beer
to
and then a laugh.
end the track. So again, it's just another doubling and tripling and quadrupling down on the
I would
beat.
agree. Yeah, yeah.
Which again, that's where I think it gets overdone a little bit. Like you didn't like
Yeah.
intro and the outro can go, and you maybe didn't need the alcohol cover, but I don't know. I guess
No.
it should be there.
Yeah.
Well, it's only 2 minutes long, so it's not too bad.
Yeah.
Short but sweet.
Do either
Yeah.
of you guys have the album runtime there? I forgot to look it up. The exact.
Yeah, I have it here. Just one sec. I think it's yeah, one sec. I had it. I lost it here.
Must be a decent. Must be in the upper 40s.
I think it is. Yeah.
Would be. Should.
Yeah.
But it's you're right though. There's a lot of, I wouldn't even say it's necessarily filler to some degree. I think it's just maybe they didn't get they were trying so many different things that they just kind of, like you said, they tripled down on the theme a little bit too much, and I think that's what kind of it kind of makes it a little repetitive, as Ken was saying. So the album. Oh, I don't have it actually. Hold
Okay,
on.
no worries. No worries.
Yeah.
Not a big deal. Yeah, I mean, I think it's safe to say they didn't need, they weren't desperate for a 2 minute cover.
39:21.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So it's not even. So yeah, okay, that would
Not even 40 minutes.
Yeah.
interesting. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay. So yeah, so that kind of covers the album. Great album overall.
Yeah.
We don't usually do ratings, but like I'm just curious, what if we were doing a top 10, where would you guys sit with this? Jim, why don't you go here?
I'd give this, I mean, a solid 8 out of 10. It's their stuff. I think most of their stuff for me would be an 8, an 8.5. Their next album, this is my favorite album. The next album was really strong, and I did like their first album, but like I would give even Pavlov's Dogs maybe like an 8, a 7.5 out of 10. So that's what I would rate it.
I only ask because it's interesting. I don't know that there is, like, I like Tankard and I enjoy especially the first couple, but I don't think, if I'm being honest with myself, I have a 10 in the Tankard catalog. Like, I'm not
Yeah, I
even
can see
sure I
that.
have a 9 to be honest, but Ken, you
Yeah, eight and a half for me. That's where
Yeah.
I'd go. I don't know, like maybe a 9 for the first album because it is the OG album and
Mhm.
it's pretty raw, lots of energy. But that's it. I don't think they have a 10 album in my mind, in any of
True.
their,
Yeah.
not in my opinion.
Which kind of gets back to the first question we started with, right? Like they're
Yeah.
kind of because if I were to go with Destruction, I can find a couple tens, I can find a
Oh
couple
yeah,
tens in Creator, and I can certainly find some tens in Sodom, right? So there
yeah,
is, again, that leveling difference between Tankard and the other three.
Yeah.
yeah. I would think so. I mean, like as goofy as some of the lyrics are, I think it's okay on the earlier albums because the music is so intense and so furious. So it doesn't. It's all right. I think where they really falter is the later stuff, where the music is okay, but they're a bit more cleaner production on all the later albums, and then they overdo the whole lyrical content about beer, so they don't work as much. But I think they work on the first 3 to 4 albums
Yeah.
Yeah.
also, because you were saying, Billy, you find some of the lyrics cheesy, but really when you think about it, I listened to this album and I didn't really think that until I was like examining the lyrics separately. But when you just listen to the album, no, it comes across as this really kind of like in your face, raw energy, aggressive thrash album. So, earlier stuff, props to all the earlier stuff, really.
Yeah. Cool. Anything else you guys want to add before we jump to our top tens?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jimmy, you want to take the lead on this one?
Yeah, sure. So I'm gonna go like I decided to do like 8 thrash bands and maybe 3 big
That's
German
cool.
bands. Yeah.
That's
So
cool. Yeah.
obviously my 3 of my favorite non-thrash German bands would definitely be Blind Guardian, Accept, old school and even the new stuff from Accept. Absolutely love it. And Powerwolf. I'm a huge Powerwolf fan. So,
Cool.
but I mean, like Scorpions, the Scorpions are German, but I wanted to kind of call those 3 out. I got kind of have 11 because I've got 8 thrash bands. Starting with my German thrash at 8, I've got the band Traitor. They're pretty good. They had a new album out, I think last year. I have it, Exile to the Surface. That was pretty good. They've got a few. I think they've only got about 6 full-length albums and a lot of EPs. I find a lot of the German bands do a lot of EPs. I don't know if it was just maybe it was the time frame a lot of the bands came out. But anyways, number 7 going from bottom to top would be like Vendetta. Feed the Extermination album from 2011. It's really, really good. And I think they had a new album out, Black as Coal, in 2023. So they're pretty cool. Number 6, going back to like 1988, Minotaur. I think they've got a song, Power of Darkness is the album. And I remember the song Fierce Fight is really, really cool. Like them guys. Number 5, Billy got me into these guys about a year ago, Mekong Delta. Cool. I'm into their 1980, I think it's a 1989 album, Principle of Doubt. Really, really good album. I've been checking out a lot of their stuff, and it's really, really cool. I'm a little bit more newer to it because I didn't know about it until we started really talking about it. Number 4, Cruel Force, kind of a newer band.
Oh, I forgot. Yeah.
Yeah, they're pretty cool. Dawn of the Axe, which is their 2023 release. That's just really, really kind of a return to old school, Teutonic thrash. Number 3 is kind of an interesting band. So it's more of, I guess you could call it a prog thrash band to some degree, Angel Dust. These guys, okay.
Yeah.
6
You got
albums.
2 thumbs up from Ken.
Oh yeah, one of my favorite bands. Yes.
I think their album of Human Bondage came out in 2001, but I don't,
Yep.
There's some great stuff there, but it's really cool when you listen to it. Some tracks are massively prog, and then other tracks are massively thrash, and then they have tracks that kind of mix the both, so it's kind of neat. That was number 3. Number 2, my second one, and remember, these guys, we were not picking any of the big 4. So Violent Force.
Oh, yeah.
I think they've only had one album only that's full length. 1982, I think it was. And that was really, really cool. I remember that. I had a copy of it way back, and I've lost it. I think it was on cassette, and really, really was into that. And my number one, I'd have to pick out of the top four would be Exhumer. You know, Possessed by Fire is a 1986 is like a legendary album,
Love
and I
that
just saw,
album.
yeah, and I just where they had whack in there, Billy.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I know they're on tour, I think, with Hyrax right now.
Yep.
So through Europe. So, and I think it's one of the members' son, like their a buddy of mine was telling me about it, and he was saying they were pretty good, and they've got one of the guy's sons playing guitar on it, so it's kind of neat. You know, hopefully they're you know, I always like that band quite a bit. So
Yeah, there were
some
two
kind of
really. There was one really young guitar player. Maybe that's
yes,
what you're talking about. Like
yeah.
really young looking.
And they said he kind of, the buddy of mine said he did a really good job, but you could tell he was playing a little bit maybe above his pay grade a bit for the music, but he did a really good job, and he was
Yeah,
really,
and he had
really
a big smile on his face. I guess.
yeah,
Right. Yeah.
yeah. So there's a couple of neat stuff. This was a really good list to create. At first, when Billy suggested we don't include the big four, I was like, what? How can you have a best list without my favorite German band of all time, Creator? But anyways, no, this made me kind of go back into my sort of, you know, back into the looking to remember. So a lot of it was done going through my tape collection and seeing what I had. And some of it came off of even some compilation tapes that were really weird. And I probably even have some of the stuff that's like on copies that I don't have those anymore. Blank tapes that we ended up copying when we got something, when one of our friends was lucky enough to pick up one of these gems, we all copied it at school. So, but it was kind of neat going back through and then going, I remember that. Yeah. So what I'm planning to do this week is really get into more of kind of expanding this a little bit to more like, especially Angel Dust. I must have listened to 3 of their albums, and I was like, oh man, I'm really
Great
liking
band.
this. So I'm gonna go on the hunt for some of this and pick some of it up.
You won't go wrong with Angel Dust, dude.
Yeah.
Yep. Cool.
So that's my list, guys.
There was one you mentioned, Jim. What was that again? I think you said really early 80s and only one album, or
oh yeah, Violent Force.
I don't know. I don't know that, but do you know what the album cover looks like?
What about the Ashes? I believe it is a Sign of Evil. I believe is the song off it that I knew.
Okay, I don't know that. Okay,
yeah,
I'll check them out.
It's their only full length album, and it was they had, I think, an EP around that time as well. An EP.
Okay, cool. Ken, you want to do your list?
Sure. So number 10, I'm going to start with Assassin. Again, all these bands, like, they came out like mid to late 80s, couple albums, and then disappeared. I like Upcoming Terror, which came out in 87. Pretty good album. Then they broke up, of course, and then they came back in 2002 they reformed, and they've released some pretty good albums. I like Combat Cathedral. And they've had 3 others, so they're pretty solid. The only original member now is Jürgen Schultz. He's the only original guitarist from the band. Everyone else is pretty much new, but they're pretty solid. I think I like their stuff. Number 9, I'm putting Fatal Embrace. Again, like 90s formation band, a little bit more thrash, but some death. I guess maybe some of the vocals are a bit tears. They have 6 albums to date. Their latest one was Operation Genocide in 2019. Pretty solid stuff. If you haven't heard them, give them a try. I like their albums. I'm really particular to Legions of Armageddon that they put out like mid 90s. It's a pretty solid album. So they're not too bad. Number 7, I'm going to go to, of course, as Jim was talking about, Angel Dust. Again, one of the best speed thrash power metal bands. 6 albums to date. Their first two original albums in '86 and '88 are both kind of thrash, but then they sort of had a break. They came back. They didn't really break up, but they kind of went on hiatus. Came back in 1998 with which I consider one of the pretty much for me one of my favorite power metal albums, Border of Reality in 1998. Great album. Totally love that album. Everything they've done has been great. Again, they too sort of took a break again. They kind of reformed in 2016 and they were talking about a new album. But then Frank Banks, one of the original guitar players, passed away from a heart attack. So, from my understanding, they're still a band and we're still kind of waiting for a new album, which I don't know, maybe they'll get to. So, I'm not too sure. So, their status is kind of up in the air currently, but great band. Jimmy, you won't go wrong. Go check out the first two, Into the Dark Past and To Dust You Will Decay. Great albums.
Yeah.
There's no bad album in their discovery. Seriously, good stuff. And then number 6, I'm putting Ducented. They're more or less modern German kind of death thrash. Started in '92. Unfortunately, they called it quits in 2018. I really like 2003's Impact. Pretty solid stuff. I don't know if they ever really broke through with the mainstream as much, but I've always thought they were a pretty good band. Number 5 is Death Row. They had 5 albums. Really, really good band, of course. You know, I know Billy loves the Deception Ignored album from '89, which is like one of the better technical speed thrash metal albums. It's great. They're a really good band. Unfortunately, they broke up, or at least we don't know. It's one of those kind of
exactly.
If they break up, or it's kind of unknown. But they were 5 albums, pretty solid band. If you don't know them, Jim, give them a go too.
I will.
You might like them. Then I'm going to put my next band is Mystic Prophecy, which I absolutely, totally love. 12 albums. More, it's not quite thrash. Like there's thrash elements, but they're more like speed and power. They're a mix of all 3.
No, I forgot about them. Yeah,
they're great. I love these guys. I mean, for those who don't know, Gus G was actually the original founding member in the first 3 albums. Oddly enough, though, their vocalist is actually Greek. He's not even German, Roberto Liapakis, but he's got a great voice. My favorite album is Savage Souls. It's the first album that Gus left, that they brought in Marcus Poles to replace him. Great album. I love that album. I play that album a lot. It's such great album. And then I'm putting Darkness next. They had 3 albums. I like, again, they're not one of those well-known bands. If you heard Death Squad in '87, it's pretty good. They called it quits, came back in 2013, and they've put out 3 albums. The current one, Blood on the Canvas, 2024, is pretty solid. Weird how these bands just like kind of disappear and come back. Number 3, I'm putting Grinder. This is a band I really, really like.
Yeah.
Only 4 albums. They called it, they sort of didn't kind of call it quits. They changed their name to Capricorn in '93. And then put out 2 more albums, and then they kind of called it quits, which is too bad because they had some really good musicianship in the band. Dead End 1989 is a freaking killer album. I absolutely love that album. Look them up if you don't know them, but they're a pretty solid thrash band.
I prefer their original name.
Oh, you like your own? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't get that, but yeah.
Yeah, you like your? Yeah. I don't know. It's weird, but every band's got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And then number 3 is Living Death, another band that I really liked a lot. Good, like, speed thrash. They had it all mixed. They had 5 albums. It's funny. I just recently got an original pressing on CD of Vengeance of Hell from 1984 last summer. I was like, I got it at Sonic Boom actually, and I was like over the moon, like an original pressing. Like, this is great. So that was pretty good. They're a really good band. My favorite album is Protected from Reality in 1987. Sadly, they faded away in the '90s. And again, I don't know if this is one of these bands. I don't know if they've called it quits or if they're still around, but they're kind of unknown, which is strange. And then my last band, of course, is what Jim had, and that's Exhumer. These guys are great. What can you say? Possessed by Fire is such a great album. I
Yeah.
totally love that album. And I mean, yeah, they called it quits too, but they came back and Fire and Damnation. If you haven't heard that from 2012, give that a go. It's so great. It's such a great album. They only have two original members, so Ray Mensch is still on guitar, and then Men von Stein is the bass and vocalist. So they've got two more kind of newer members, I think, in the last 10 years that they brought on board. But good band. I think they should have gotten a lot more praise than they did. I think what hurt them is the two albums and then the fact that they called it quits after that. So I think that's what hurt them. But I think Possessed by Fire is a classic.
Mm.
That's mine.
Oh, Billy, just one thing. So I got the date. I had written the date down wrong. It was 1987. Here's what the cover looks like. I don't know if you can see that, but it's
okay.
kind of skulls on it. It's Violent Force. The name of the album, those were songs I had picked out.
Sorry, can you put it back up, Jim, again? Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. You'll be able to get it on Apple Music. It's the only album with an EP. Malevolent, Assault of Tomorrow. And the songs that I said there, What About the Time After and Sign of Evil, are wicked. But the whole album's pretty tight. But yeah, they just kind of disappeared.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So far some pretty diverse lists, a couple overlaps, and we'll have a couple overlaps with mine too, but a few new ones. And yeah, Ken, like a lot of your lists are bands that I have like one or two albums I know really well, but I didn't feel like I could speak to them without knowing all their material. But yeah, there's a lot of great bands that you had on there too. So yeah, my top 10, really my top three are in order. And the rest, I didn't fuss about putting them in any particular order. But for me, again, the order can flip them around. Number 10 for me is a band called Risk. I talked about these guys before, showed an album. They actually started in the late 60s as a prog band, and then they switched things up and became Risk, and became a bit more of a speed technical thrash, I would say. And the album I showed on a previous episode was the Daily Horror News from 1988. So that's a must. But there's a few other good ones as well. But warning, those are hard to find, and I don't even think they've had reissues along the way. My number 9 is one I thought you'd have, Ken. The German band Protector.
They were in my honorable mentions, but
Okay. So thrash speed metal band, and I just I thought Shedding of the Skin in 1991 is just a classic, like death thrash band. They have like 8 records, 88, and even a recent one in 2022 as well. Our work on that Shedding Skin is really good. So need to check that out. Number 8, I have overlap with Jimmy. It's Vendetta. And so, Jim, you mentioned some of the later albums, but I mean, they're most known for Brain Damage, which is their second album from '88, and even their first, like Go and Live, Stay and Die. Those are two like classic German bands, a bit of a mix of thrash and speed. A 7 I won't talk about because Ken had it, Darkness.
Good.
So number 6 is a band you guys haven't mentioned, Despair. They were more of a strong tech thrash band. So again, like any top German thrash list should have 1992's Beyond All Reason, in my opinion. So they only have like 3 full-length albums, and they've been talking about a potential comeback for years, but I gave up on that. Number 5, I have Exhumer. You guys already talked about that. Number 4, I had a common one. I wanted to get at least one new band in here. So similar to Jim, I picked Traitor. He already sort of talked about that. 4 full-length albums. A lot of their artwork's pretty fun too. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of cool. Then these would be my top 3 German bands. So number 3, Ken had Death Row. So I'm such a massive fan. And so not that many albums, really 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And you know, they basically shocked the metal world. Like we think the Black Album was a shock for Metallica fans. Deception Ignored was probably the biggest shock of any
Yeah.
metal fan coming off the previous Death Row albums. And then what I loved is the last album before they called it quits in 1992 was an album called Still Life. And they actually took the technicality or some of it from Deception Ignored, but mixed it with the old style. So that should have brought the fans back, but it was the 90s. So we all know what was going on there. So sadly, that was the end. But Deception Ignored, one of the best albums ever made. Number 2 is Paradox. I think, Ken, I don't think it was on your list, but you
No,
mentioned.
but I like them. Yeah, yeah. Yep.
I just think one of the most underrated German bands ever. 9 albums between 87 and I did in a news section. The 2024 release is almost ready to come out. It's really only the one guy, Charlie Steinhauer. He's, you know, unfortunately had a massive heart attack a while back, but he came back with another album. And you know, I just can't recommend them enough, especially the earlier material there. And my number 1 came up on Jim, Mekong Delta, but actually quite a lengthy discography, 12
Yes.
albums. It's technical thrash. There's not a single album I dislike. And also we should mention some very cool album artwork as well here. And so, yeah, I mean, this is my favorite German band, and I didn't pick them to replace Tankard, only because it's a little bit more niche, right? The technical thrash, so that's not going to appeal to everybody. So that would have been my only pick for me to knock them out, but I don't think it makes sense to knock them out for such a limited audience for this tech thrash stuff. So yeah, that's my list.
Nobody had Holy Moses, which I was a bit surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I tried with them. Like
Yeah.
I have a couple albums, and like I don't know, like it just doesn't click with me for whatever reason.
And Accuser, did you know about that band?
Yeah, Accuser
Tell me.
was my number 10, and I knocked him
Oh,
off
okay.
Risk.
Oh, you did. Okay, that's cool.
My
What about
technical
what
thrash.
about Brainstorm? It's not thrash, but it's like,
Yeah.
you guys like Brainstorm? I love them a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're kind of like more power, maybe a little bit of thrash, but I have all their albums and I really got into them too. I think they're pretty unique band. But
Yeah.
you know, and Iron Angel, you could have mentioned them. I don't think they were too bad. There's a lot. Like, I would have put Paradox on my list, but I was trying to sort of maybe steer away from the more known bands and go for a little bit more on the obscure side, as
Yeah.
opposed to like. But yeah, I agree with you. Paradox and Mekong Delta are 2 really good German thrash bands. There's no question in my mind.
But I would
Thank
argue
God.
Paradox is not well known, right? Like, yeah,
They're not.
the
Yes.
average North American, they're gonna have no idea who the hell that is.
Yes.
Maybe the Heresy album, which is their biggest hit, but that, you know, like Product of, what was it? Product of Imagination before that. Like, I mean, with the Heresy is the only one that really hit more internationally.
I could see that. It's got more thrashier roots on it though, because it's an earlier album, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But they're a good band. I like all their albums. I'm looking forward to the new album, so can't wait when that comes out.
Yeah. You guys know, this is not a modern band. They released in 1990. Like, I never know how to say it, but I love this album. But it's the only one I think they ever did, so I didn't put it on my list. The album's called Two Sides of a Coin from 1990. It's a band called Pira Kanda.
Oh, Pyrocanda. Yeah,
PYR.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's Pyrocanda. Yes, yes, yes. I know
yeah.
them. I love
Like
that album cover.
that's a
So
fun
great.
album. That's a good album.
Yeah, yeah. It's always on top 10 lists. If
Yeah.
you go to classicthrash.com,
Mhm.
they have it on their list.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
picked up a copy on CD like a few years ago. Like I
Okay.
go back to it every now and then.
Yeah, I don't have a copy of it, but I've heard it and I like it. It's pretty strong stuff for
Okay.
like one album.
Yeah, I mean, you could get, I mentioned this, I think, when we had Jason on. One of the best companies for the rarest heavy metal that you can't get anywhere is
Mhm,
Dive Bomb Records. They do these
mhm.
mass, like they redid the DBC stuff and
Yeah.
they did this album. That was the only way to ever get it. But they do a great job. Like you get a whole booklet, they bring the band in, the band tells
Mhm.
the story. Like these guys are I mean, they only do the rare stuff that old metal fans love. So
Cool,
that's a great label to check out if you're into CDs.
cool.
Okay. So yeah, that kind of brings us to that was our final item there. Before we wrap it up, anything you guys want to add? Any final comments?
No, I'm all good.
Great show. Yeah.
All
Yeah,
right, cool.
exactly.
No, I like that top 10. That was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
that was good.
So yeah, so again, so let's wrap this thing up. So again, thanks everyone for tuning in to another Thrashcast. We greatly appreciate it. We had fun. So next week's topic, this is a Jim's pick. I think Jim will be hosting that one.
Yep.
Suicidal tendencies. How can I laugh tomorrow when I can't even smile today? Which would be a contender for longest album title from 1988. And what's that, Jim? Third album, I think, right? Or second? No, third.
That's the
Third. Yeah.
third.
Third.
Yeah,
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 the
yeah.
third.
Okay. All right, cool.
It's a good
Uh,
album.
yeah, so look forward to that. And
Mhm.
again, thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Ken. An honor as
You.
always to do this with
You
you.
bet.
Have a good night.
Awesome.
Perfect.